How long has it been since you truly listened? Not to the world or the noise or the next thing on your list, but to that soft voice inside you. The one that doesn't shout, the one that waits. Maybe you haven't lost your way. Maybe you just forgot that the path was always within you. What if alchemy was never about transforming metal into gold? What if it was about something much more sacred returning to yourself? In this journey, we're not chasing answers. We're listening for a remembering. 15 ancient codes like notes in a forgotten melody will guide us through. Not to something new, but back to what's been quietly calling from within. You don't need to believe anything. Just breathe and listen, because something in you already knows. Have you ever walked into a room, paused for just a second, and felt like something was already waiting for you there? Not a person, not an object, but a sense quiet and familiar, like you had been there before or somehow created it. It's a strange feeling, isn't it? Like the outer world is echoing something you haven't yet remembered, something that didn't start outside you, but inside. Most of us move through life thinking the world is happening to us, that we're being swept along by circumstances, tossed around by chance, fated by forces we can't see. But what if we turned that thought around? What if life is not a thing you survive, but a mirror of something deeper? Something designed by a part of you that never forgot where you came from. The Hermetic traditions tell us, reality isn't constructed out there. It's born in here, not from effort, not from willpower, but from alignment with the soul. The soul is not a ghost. It's not an idea or a poetic metaphor. It is the architect behind everything you touch, everything you feel. Not in some grand metaphysical way you'll never understand, but in the most intimate way possible through your thoughts, your emotions, your longings, and even your fears. Think of the soul like an artist, a patient, ageless hand that sketches each moment of your life with invisible ink, then waits for you to notice. And once you do, the whole world begins to shift. The people you meet, the opportunities you attract, even the pain you repeat, these aren't accidents. They are reflections of an internal landscape. The soul draws from what you believe, what you allow, what you deny, and especially what you've forgotten about yourself. If you believe you are small, the world will reflect a narrow corridor. If you remember you are vast, life begins to open. The brushstrokes widen. The light comes in. You see, the soul doesn't force its way into your life. It whispers. It invites. It builds patiently from the inside out, waiting for your awareness to catch up. And when it does, something remarkable happens. You stop chasing power. You start awakening it. True creation doesn't begin when you try harder. It begins when you remember. Because your soul isn't building something brand new. It's restoring a design that was always yours. This is why the same patterns seem to follow you, no matter how much your external life changes. Until you look within, the architecture doesn't change. New house, same floor plan. Different job, same emptiness. New relationship, same ache. But once you turn inward, not to fix, not to judge, but to witness, you step into the original design room. You start to co-create with that ancient part of you, not by controlling life, but by aligning with what has always been true. And the soul, it celebrates, because it's never wanted to be your master. It's wanted to be your mirror. It's wanted to remind you you've always known how to build. So next time you feel the world pushing in on you, ask not what's wrong with this, but what within me is speaking through this. That's how you reclaim your power. Not by becoming someone else, but by finally listening to who's been there all along. You are not the victim of your story. You are the one holding the pen. And the soul, It's your co-writer still sketching, still whispering. This is yours. All of it, let's begin again. Some truths aren't learned. They're remembered. They arrive not as facts, but as echoes, ancient whispers stirring something inside you that already knows. That's what happens the first time you truly feel the Hermetic principle. As above, so below. It sounds simple, poetic even, but beneath those 4 words lives a secret that reshapes everything. The universe isn't out there, it's happening through you. We grow up thinking the cosmos is something far away. Stars glittering in the cold black sky, galaxies too vast to grasp. But what if those stars were also within you? What if their rhythms, their spirals, their quiet laws were written into your bones, your breath, your thoughts? As above, so below isn't just mystical poetry. It's a map, a mirror that says the same patterns that govern galaxies also govern your inner world. Think of your emotions like tides, rising and falling with invisible moons. Think of your thoughts like constellation stories formed by light, shaping how you navigate through darkness. And think of your body not as a machine, but as a miniature universe, humming with the same forces that swirl through nebulas and sunrises. When you begin to see this, something shifts. Life no longer feels random. You start noticing the links, the synchronicities, the signs, the repeated symbols that appear like breadcrumbs from the soul. You begin to realize the outer world isn't just reacting to you, it's reflecting you. That frustration you keep facing, it mirrors an inner resistance. That serendipitous meeting, it echoes a shift in your own frequency. The universe responds not to your words, but to your state, your frequency, your alignment. And that's what this ancient law points to, the power of frequency tuning. The ability to tune your internal state, your thoughts, your breath, your presence, so that you're not just surviving the world, you're harmonizing with it. Imagine a radio. If you're on the wrong frequency, all you get is static. But shift just a little and suddenly clarity. Music, message, your life works the same way. When your inner station is tuned to fear, you receive distortion. But when it's tuned to clarity, to stillness, to truth, you begin to hear the song of the universe again. As above, so below is not a metaphor. It's a portal. And once you step through, you don't just understand the universe differently, you live differently. You move through life like a musician with an ear for unseen harmonies. You don't panic when things go quiet, you listen. You don't force outcomes, you align with rhythms. And slowly, gently, life begins to dance with you. Because you're no longer just a part of the universe, you're moving with it. And that changes everything. There's a quiet myth most of us carry, often without knowing. The idea that we are fragments, that our body is one thing, our mind another, and the soul, if we even believe in it, something distant, veiled, barely reachable. But what if that's never been true? What if these 3 parts of you, body, mind, and soul, aren't separate at all, but threads in a single tapestry, speaking in different languages but telling the same story? The Hermetic wisdom doesn't ask you to choose one over the other. It invites you to listen to all of them. Because true power doesn't come from rejecting any part of yourself. It comes from integration. Your body isn't just a vessel. It's a living archive of every emotion you've ever stored, every breath you've ever forgotten to take, every instinct that has tried to guide you. Your mind isn't just a processor. It's a translator of unseen realms, interpreting the language of intuition, pattern, and inner knowing. And your soul, it's the compass. Not shouting, not demanding. Just gently turning you toward alignment, again and again, even when you resist. These 3 aren't strangers. They're a trinity. a sacred triangle, each side incomplete without the others. And when one goes unheard, you feel it. When you ignore the body, anxiety arises. Disconnection grows. When you silence the mind, confusion takes root. Doubt fogs your clarity. When you forget the soul, life feels mechanical, like you're moving but not alive. So how do we return to wholeness? Not by mastering all three, but by being present with each. Right now, try this. Close your eyes if only for a moment. Feel your body, not its shape, but its sensation. The weight of you in the chair, the air brushing your skin, the pulse you never asked to beat but does tirelessly. Now move to your mind. Notice the thoughts drifting by, not to judge them, but to observe. The planning, the remembering, the self-commentary, it's all part of the story. And now, behind it all, the witness. The quiet space where nothing is said, but everything is known. That's the soul. The stillness beneath the noise. The sky behind the clouds. When body, mind, and soul begin to move in rhythm, when none of them are rejected or ignored, a different kind of power emerges. Not loud, not aggressive, but steady, magnetic, undeniable. You begin to walk through life not as a collection of scattered parts, but as one coherent being. Whole, present, real, and in that wholeness lies clarity. Not the kind that explains everything, but the kind that lets you breathe again. So if you feel fractured, pulled in too many directions, like there's always something left behind, pause. Not to escape, but to listen. Your body is speaking. Your mind is weaving, and your soul is waiting. Harmony isn't a goal, it's a remembering. And you, dear soul, were never broken, just waiting to come back together. What if your life was part of a much larger landscape, one with levels, layers, invisible thresholds? And what if each thought, each choice, each breath, it was quietly moving you up or down along that map? The ancients believed consciousness isn't flat. It rises like a mountain, layered with meaning and energy. From the densest of instincts to the subtlest light of knowing, every soul walks a path, sometimes in circles, sometimes in leaps, but always with the possibility to ascend. This is the hierarchy of being, not a hierarchy of power, but of presence, of depth, of light. At the base of this inner map, life is survival. The senses dominate. Fear makes the decisions. Time feels heavy, and the self is narrowly defined by body and ego. You act because you must. You react because you don't yet know you have a choice. But then something stirs. You start to notice the patterns, the repetition. The question arises, is there more than this? That moment is a doorway, and once crossed, you begin the quiet climb. Through awareness, through compassion, through humility. Each level of consciousness opens a new dimension of experience, not somewhere else, but here, in the same room, just seen with new eyes. The middle realms are where most souls dance for lifetimes. Growth is messy here. You feel both pulled down and called upward. Your mind argues, your heart remembers. This is where the real work begins. Learning to trust what you can't yet prove. Higher still, there are states where duality begins to dissolve. You don't just believe in unity, you feel it. The lines between self and other blur. Peace becomes less of a goal and more of a presence. You act from stillness. You speak from truth. Few speak of the highest realms because words become thin up there. What lives in those spaces cannot be captured, it can only be experienced. But don't think of these levels as distant or abstract. They're not somewhere in the clouds, they're within you, and they shift not by time or effort but by vibration. The question isn't, where are you on the ladder? The question is, what are you ready to see? Because the soul is always ready. It waits with infinite patience, offering a quiet invitation. Come higher. Not for escape, not for pride, but because you've tasted something deeper and you can't untaste it. You've seen enough of survival. Now you want meaning. You've heard enough of noise. Now you long for silence that speaks. So listen. That inner ache, that pull toward something unnamed, it's not confusion. It's a signal. You are not lost. You are becoming. The map is not given, it's revealed. And every moment you choose awareness over habit, reflection over reaction, you take a step upward. Not toward perfection, but toward presence. Not toward more, but toward what has always been here, waiting to be seen. You've spoken millions of words in your life. Some whispered in love, some hurled in frustration. Others tossed away in passing, forgotten by the next breath. But what if no word is ever truly forgotten? What if every sentence you've spoken left a trace, not just in the ears of others, but in the very field around you? Hermetic teachings whisper of a hidden truth. Language is not merely sound. It is vibration, and every vibration creates, not metaphorically, literally. When you speak, you set frequencies into motion waves that move through air, yes, but also through the unseen, through the energetic lattice that weaves reality. Your words are not descriptions of life. They are part of how life is shaped. In the ancient mysteries, words were sacred, kept in temples, studied in silence. Because the initiates knew, a word misused is not just a mistake, it's a distortion. And a word spoken with intention, it's a doorway. Pause for a moment and feel this. How many times have you called yourself names in your own mind? I'm not good enough. I'm always messing things up. I'll never get there. These are not thoughts, they are spells. Every time you repeat them, you are deepening a groove, like water carving stone. You are aligning your vibration not with truth, but with fear. Not with possibility, but with limitation. But here, the alchemy. The opposite is also true. A word of truth, spoken with awareness, can realign your entire field. One sentence, if it comes from the soul, can redirect a life. This is why silence matters, not as avoidance, but as reverence. In silence, you begin to hear the vibration beneath the word. You start to notice the tone, the intention, the unspoken frequency. You begin to speak less but mean more. Eventually, your language becomes an extension of your presence. Not just what you say, but how you say it, where you speak from. Whether your words arise from the mind's need to control or the soul's impulse to reveal. You'll feel it. Others will too. Because the body can hear truth even when the mind doubts it. We are wired to respond to authenticity. So what would it mean to speak like every word matters? Not with fear, but with care. To offer language not as a tool of defense or persuasion, but as a gift. A tuning fork for the unseen. A blessing cast into the air. You don't have to be a poet or a preacher. You don't even need to speak often. You only need to remember. Your words are alive. They echo, they plant, they bind, they free. And if you choose to honor that, you'll begin to craft not just better conversations, but a more coherent life. One where the inside and the outside finally speak the same language. We're taught, often too early, to fear our emotions, to hide them, to smooth them over with a smile, bury them under logic, or silence them with distraction. But what if emotions weren't obstacles, but invitations? What if that anger you felt, that grief that never quite let go, that surge of jealousy or ache of longing, what if none of it was a mistake? Hermetic alchemy doesn't seek to erase emotion. It seeks to transmute it, to take the raw materials of human experience, rage, sorrow, fear, and place them in the sacred fire. not to destroy them, but to refine them. In ancient texts, the fire is a symbol of consciousness, and everything that passes through it is transformed, not because the fire punishes, but because it purifies. Your emotions are not the problem. Your resistance to feeling them is. Anger, for example, is not a flaw. It is heat, energy. A flare from deep within that something you value has been crossed. When denied, it festers. When indulged blindly, it burns. But when held with presence, it becomes fuel. The same is true of sadness. It is not weakness, it is water. A tide rising from the soul to cleanse what you were never meant to carry. In truth, every strong emotion is a doorway. Behind each is a deeper need, a hidden wound, a forgotten truth. So how do you begin the work of inner fire? Start by staying. Stay when the feeling comes. Instead of running, sit. Instead of fixing, breathe. Place your awareness where the sensation lives in your body, not the story, just the heat, the pulse, the tremble, and then breathe into it, not to make it go away, but to let it be seen. This is the alchemical fire, awareness plus breath. You are not the anger, you are the one witnessing it. You are not the pain, you are the one holding it. And the moment you stop identifying with emotion and start observing it, you change its shape. You shift its frequency. You allow it to teach you rather than rule you. This isn't passive, it's fierce. It takes courage to sit in the flame and not flinch, to let yourself burn not into ash but into gold. Because the goal isn't control, it's clarity. When you befriend your inner fire, you no longer fear yourself. You stop outsourcing your power. You begin to walk with a spine of flame and a heart of light. And the world, it notices, not because you're louder, but because you're centered, aligned, alive. So the next time an emotion surges, don't reach for distraction. Reach inward. Say to it, "You're welcome here. Show me what I haven't seen." Then breathe, stay, and let the fire do its work. You don't need to be perfect. You only need to be present. And in presence, all things are transformed. The moon does not shine with its own light. It reflects. It waxes and wanes. It pulls the tides. It disappears and reemerges. It is never constant, yet it is always there. So are your emotions. In Hermetic symbolism, the moon represents the shifting waters of the inner world, your feelings, your moods, your subtle states of being. And just like the moon, these emotions are not to be feared or fixed. They are to be witnessed. Because awakening doesn't mean you stop feeling. It means you stop being ruled by what you feel. We live in a culture that equates steadiness with suppression. We're praised for keeping it together and taught that emotional waves are weaknesses. But in truth, the ability to ride those waves without drowning is one of the most powerful skills on the path. You felt it, the sudden swell of sadness, the heat of disappointment, the flutter of anxiety with no clear source. These are not enemies, they are signals, rhythms, echoes of something deeper asking for attention. The moon teaches us that everything has a cycle. Just as the night grows dark before the light returns, so too do your emotions pass through phases. None of them permanent, all of them meaningful. So when a feeling arises, pause, don't brace against it. Don't analyze it too quickly, just allow it. Like watching the moon rise, let the emotion be present in your sky. Observe its color, its texture, its pull. You can even close your eyes for a moment and ask, what phase am I in? Sometimes you'll find yourself in a new moon, quiet, blank, waiting. Other times, in a full moon, bright, expressive, intense. And often, somewhere in between growing or fading, learning or releasing. There's no wrong place to be. There is only the practice of staying aware. This practice is not about doing, it's about listening. In the silence between reactions, you find space. And in that space, something beautiful happens. You realize you are not your emotions. You are the one observing the tides. The moon rises, the moon falls, but the sky remains. So take a breath. Gently, close your eyes if you'd like. Feel whatever is present in you not as a problem to solve, but as a wave to witness. This is the heart of lunar alchemy, soft power. You don't push, you don't force, you allow. And in that softness, strength grows. In that stillness, the storm passes. You return not to control, but to center. The next time your feelings swell and threaten to pull you under, remember, you've floated through darker nights than this. And like the moon, you will rise again. There's a story hidden in the oldest mystic texts of 8 heavens, stacked like invisible layers around you. Not above, not far away, but within. Each one representing a level of consciousness. Each one a state of being. Not destinations, not fantasies, but remembered truths. You may have glimpsed them already in moments that felt inexplicably deep. A sudden knowing. A sense of presence so full it felt like time stopped. A moment when everything around you pulsed with meaning. Those weren't accidents. They were echoes of the higher heavens within you. In Hermetic philosophy, these heavens aren't places you go when life ends their states. You can enter as your awareness evolves. Like stepping through veils, each layer reveals more of what's possible, more of who you are beneath the noise. The first heaven is instinct raw survival. It's where most of humanity lives, reacting, defending, reaching for control. The second is emotion feeling life, but still being ruled by it. The third is reason where logic and order provide safety, but also limits. And then, you rise. The fourth is presence when you start to witness, to detach from identity, to taste peace that isn't circumstantial. The fifth is intuition when you feel truth before you understand it, when symbols speak louder than facts. The sixth is unity where boundaries dissolve, where you and the world stop being separate. The seventh is transcendent states of ecstasy, stillness, deep silence where the self fades into light. And the eighth, some call it the source. Others say it can't be named. It is the space before form, the sound before sound. But hear us what matters most. You've never been cut off from any of these. You're not climbing a ladder. You're remembering a structure already inside you. Like a radio that can tune into multiple frequencies, your consciousness can shift. Through breath, through stillness, through honesty, through love. The question is not, how do I get there? The question is, where am I right now? And can I soften enough to feel the pull of what's next? You might already sense it. A call upward not as escape, but as return. A gentle yearning for more clarity, more compassion, more coherence between your inner and outer world. This is not about chasing mystical experiences. It's about living in a more awake way, right here. It's about speaking with more care, feeling with more depth, choosing with more courage. You don't need to become someone else to rise. You only need to stop pretending to be less than what you are. So the next time you feel small, confused, or disconnected, pause, close your eyes, and ask, which heaven am I in right now? Not to judge, but to navigate. Because the map is already in you. And the journey, it's not up, it's in. There's a moment quiet and without warning when you realize you haven't been lost. You've just forgotten. Forgotten the way your soul speaks, the rhythm it follows, the light it never stopped carrying. In the noise of life, it's easy to mistake silence for absence. Easy to believe that, because the path feels dark, you must be off course. But your soul doesn't shout, it whispers. It nudges, it waits. There is no panic in its pace. It knows you'll return not because you have to, but because you long to. This remembering isn't dramatic. It's not a fireworks moment. It's the soft click of something falling back into place. You might feel it when you're walking alone and the wind brushes your cheek just right. When a line in a book stirs something deep. When you look into someone's eyes and feel, for a second, utterly known. These moments are not outside you. They are you because your soul never left. You just stopped listening. Somewhere along the way, the world convinced you to trade the voice inside for the noise outside. To value proof over presence, performance over peace. But the soul doesn't play that game. It doesn't need to win. It only wants to be seen. And it is always, always speaking. You hear it in your intuition. The quiet knowing before the mind rushes in. You feel it in resistance, yes, even that. Because resistance shows you what your heart already knows is not for you. You touch it when you choose honesty over ease, stillness over scrolling, compassion over control. To remember is not to invent something new. It's to strip away what was never yours. No striving, no earning, just a soft return. You don't need a plan, you need a pause. Breathe. Place your hand on your chest if that feels right. Close your eyes. Ask, not with pressure but with trust, what part of me have I forgotten? Wait, let the answer rise in its own time. Sometimes it will come as a memory, sometimes as a feeling, often as peace. This is the journey inward, not a hunt but a homecoming. And the more you remember, the more you soften. The more you soften, the more you open. The more you open, the more your soul can move through you not as something you visit, but as something you become. You are not behind, you are not broken, you are just remembering. And in that remembering, everything begins again. There's no rush now, no more chasing, no more proving, just presence. Because once you've touched truth even for a moment, it stays with you. Like a soft glow behind your eyes, a quiet knowing in your chest. You may wander, you may forget, but something in you remembers, and that's enough. Let yourself stay in this space, the space behind words, the stillness beneath the thoughts, the place where answers no longer need to be searched for because they are already known. You don't need to figure everything out, you only need to listen. So before you leave, pause for a moment. Ask gently, not to anyone out there, but to the part of you that's always been waiting. Do you hear it? The call, the light, the truth that was never outside you, just waiting for you to turn inward. And remember,